Well, simply race control is here to do two functions. One is to keep the race safe, and the other is to ensure that all of the rules are actually being followed during the course of the race. So within race control, we have safety dispatchers who are in contact with all of the safety workers, and we also have people who are in contact with all of the corners so that they can observe what's going on. And we also have the screens that you see behind me and some screens that are in contact with the TV truck as well, so we can look very specifically at things. And then we also have a group of people who are here watching after the rules. So they're talking to pit lane. We have the stewards in here also who have a set of decisions that they'll make, and hopefully we keep the race literally under control. But at the end of the day, we're looking to have exciting races and safe races. So sometimes we'll learn from experience that we need to do something with this particular rule to make sure that we have safety. And unfortunately at Mid-Ohio we learned some things about what goes on in pit lane and some of the safety protective gear, and so we'll adjust a rule for safety reasons. The other reason we adjust rules is for a better competition. So we work very extensively with the manufacturers, we work with the participants themselves, and then we'll sit down as a group, the various officials and whoever the expert is in that area will write a rule, and we'll all critique it and go through it, and then we'll implement it. And we have certain requirements for specific days or even months sometimes on how long it is before we can implement different types of rules. So we can't just change the car from stem to stern on the manufacturers or on the competitors and say, here, you got to do it by next race. But you know, simple things and things that are designed for safety we can do immediately. The American Le Mans Series isn't unique. We've got several different series that have multiple classes. And yes, you do have to officiate a little bit differently. For instance, when you put a pace car out in front of the overall leader in an American Le Mans Series race, you might be putting the pace car between first and second in a class like GT2. So we have a lot of software up here that we use to try and help us with those kinds of decisions. We don't have people that specialize on a single class, because ultimately every car out there on the racetrack affects every other car on the racetrack. And it's not really our job to run the race. It's our job, again, just to make sure that the rules are taken care of and that it's safe. Well, you have to be realistic when you implement regulations. Frankly, the biggest thing is that we gain experience everywhere we go. So when we see something that we haven't come across before, we'll take that into account and we'll look and write a rule. And we're very lucky in the American Le Mans Series to have a group of manufacturers and a group of competitors who are really all focused on the same thing. They all want to be safe and they all want to have great competition. So we can sit down with them and work cooperatively on these rules, and I think we come up with very practical rules very quickly. But basically, the safety, we have remarkably safe races, all in all. The biggest issues that we find, frankly, are that the competition is just getting bigger, better and better every time we get on the racetrack, and when the cars are closer together, they're more likely to have incidents. So that's kind of a chicken and an egg, or that's the cloud to the silver lining there. Well, the ACO rules were primarily written for a 24-hour race that happens at a very particular racetrack. Le Mans is absolutely unique in the world of racing in terms of its layout and the way that race operates. And so the very short answer is it's quite difficult to take that set of rules and apply them here. Just as for instance, there is no pit lane the way that we think of it, that has a wall and people work over the wall and so on. So all those rules are written with garages in mind and that kind of thing. But we have, over the 10 years of the American Le Mans Series, worked with the ACO and translated from the French to the English, and I think that with the work of IMSA and so on, we've actually been able to come up with some rules that now they're exporting back over there to Le Mans Series competition. So it is a work in progress always, and it's something that we work very well with the ACO. Well, when there's an incident on track, the very first thing is to understand what the incident is. That's maybe a little more challenging than it might sound. A place like Long Beach, for instance, race control is actually in the basement of the building. Lovely place to work because it's quiet and you can think, but difficult because you can't see out the window. So we rely on the communication from the corner workers, we rely on the communication from the TV truck and from all the pictures we see, and we have to evaluate what is the accident and how we can respond to it. Assuming that it is something that we decide we need to go yellow for, we will then take a look to see where the overall leader is. The corner workers will report where the leader is, and then we'll dispatch the pace car out into the field to pick up the leader. From there we have closed the pits so nobody can come into the pits. From there we try and get a pack-up so that there is an opportunity for the safety workers to go out without cars going past them too quickly. The safety dispatcher will send out the equipment that he needs. The first people on the scene will start to report to him what the incident is, what they need to clean up, so he'll start staging the various pieces of equipment. At the same time, we will then, once we get the pack up, open the pits, allow the competitors to make their pit stops. Assuming we get the track clear, we'll then wave by until we get the leader behind the pace car, and then hopefully we go green again in a fairly rapid pace. There are some exceptions to all of that, of course. So again, using the Mid-Ohio pit fire as an example, we'd already had a yellow. Then the competitors came into their pits, and then we had the pit fire. So we had to close the pits again in order to make the area safe again for people to come by. So it's very much about teamwork in here. Everybody understands each other's tone of voice and you know what level of emergency there is. And at the same time, while all of that's going on, we need to make sure that the rules are being enforced. So for me as the race director, I'm trying to make sure that the actual race is happening. Paul Walter, who at the moment is sitting to my right here, is focused on the pit lane and communicating with the pit lane staff. We also have Bo Barfield, who's also assistant race director, who is taking a look at what the incident might have been on track. The stewards will lend their experience to it, and at the same time we'll have the emergency dispatch going on, and we'll also have the information coming from the corner workers. So very much how the information flows is very important right now. The Green Challenge is a competition that takes the fuel, the greenhouse gas emissions and the petroleum displacement of the various cars, and then calculates them based on their fuel flow. So the emphasis here is on our technical department, led by Charlie Cook, who has to implement the measurement systems necessary for the challenge, and also on our data department with Mike Dupree and Doug Robinson, who are going to be doing all the number crunching live. And so those two groups certainly are going to be much busier during the course of Petit Le Mans. But for us, hopefully, it won't be anything that we have to be concerned about during the course of the race. You know, I think that as being a race official, you have to take your satisfaction from very different areas than teams do. Teams, if they win, they hoist a trophy. That's their high five, as you say. For us, I think that the greatest satisfaction comes when the team works, and we all know when that happens. You can always feel the teamwork happening in the room. A lot of times we have to make very difficult decisions, and if we all feel good about the decision, we feel we made it in a timely manner, it allowed the competition to happen, it was safe, or if there was an incident that we responded appropriately, I think we know instinctively walking out of the room that yes, in fact, we did what we could to make sure the competition happened. Ideally for us, we never lift the radio, we never talk to anybody, and we're never heard from. That'd be the perfect race for race control. We're not needed at all. But reality being what it is, we are involved, and to the extent that we can keep the competition and the racing close and exciting and safe at the same time, then we've had a successful day.